Is there anything you guys don't do?
It depends.
Right. Depends on the client, right?
Hey guys, welcome to the Southside Blueprint, your blueprint for buying, selling, and investing in homes here in Southern Maryland. Today we're joined with Stephen Knight from Maryland Custom Construction. We're just going to ask a few questions. So to start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and how you got into the construction business.
All right, so I am Stephen Knight. I am CEO and lead designer of Maryland Custom Construction. We are a smaller outfit. We're located in Hollywood, Maryland. We have a full showroom, and we're a full-service general contractor. So what that means is typically we provide and install all materials. We have full warranted work. We're licensed through Maryland's Home Improvement Commission. And we're somewhat design build, somewhat, if somebody brings plans to us, we can also work with that. We specialize in kitchen and bathroom remodeling, kitchen and bathroom design, deck and screen room construction, and also garage construction. We do other miscellaneous jobs that come along, but that's really our strong suit. Additions and stuff like that we do as well.
Is there anything you guys don't do?
It depends.
Right. Depends on the client, right?
Depends on the scope, I guess.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on a second. I thought he said he didn't do that work.
Yeah, please do.
Right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how we're like real estate and construction meet. So when you're talking with clients, do they bring up like resale value or anything like that very often?
They do. Yeah, and that's a good question because I think the tables have somewhat turned on that in recent years. Like what used to have real high value in doing, not so much anymore, right? You still have your big projects that make a huge difference. Kitchen remodeling is always on the list. Bathroom remodeling as well. But I think the big thing that people can get carried away with is how extensive everything gets, right? I think people get confused that if they put $100,000 into a kitchen remodel, they're going to get it all back. Well, just because you really want solid walnut cabinets, not everybody's looking for that, right?
Sure.
I think there's a good mix where you do it tastefully, but you also have your own style, right? Because that's another thing that gets lost is like, well, I don't want to hurt resale value. Well, you're also going to be living there for the next 10 years. You know what I mean? You can't live in this bubble of,
Perfection.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's just say you remodeled in 2020. You put gray flooring in, put white cabinets in, a white countertop, right?
Yeah.
They're not cool anymore.
You were so concerned about resale value, and then 5 years later, it's
sure.
Everybody knows it was done in 2020, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so I think resale value is big, but I think what's really gotten to be brought more to the forefront is curb appeal,
sure.
Right? Where I think that was not as, maybe, and I'm speaking out of turn a little bit, but it didn't seem as important, 5-10 years ago, but from what I've read and what I've experienced, there's a lot of people who are putting a lot of thought, design, money into the outside of their house. So like when you pull up, it's like this wow factor, right?
Sure.
And I think that's important as well.
Gotcha. Okay. So when they're making these changes to their houses, at what point, so two-part question, what point do you think they should bring a realtor into the conversation? And then what does a realtor and then build a good relationship look like?
I think that it depends on what phase they're in, right? I think if they're remodeling to sell, that's a good time. I think if they're remodeling to live there and then, sell in 10, 15 years.
Sure.
No offense. I don't think the realtor's involved at that point.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, for sure.
But I do think that there is something to be said about, obviously I'm gonna try to, sell us, right? You
Sure.
should be speaking with somebody who's into kitchen design, into not so much trends, but can really be transparent about like, if somebody asks me, well, should I be concerned about resale value? Should I be concerned about this? Like, I really want to put this 54-inch wide stove in. I'm going to be honest with you and say, how much do you really want that?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Is that worth the investment? And if we're having that type of conversation between me and a homeowner, a lot of times I'll see that they will listen, but at the same time, people are going to do what they want to do. You know what I mean? And hey, if that's what they want, I'll put it in.
I know. I have this conversation with people all the time, like especially as they're preparing to sell. And it's probably, I don't know, probably is not the norm, I guess, when a real estate agent comes in. But I'm kind of in the same opinion as you, is that, at the end of the day, I mean, from, one refrigerator type or one stove type to another stove type, yeah, I mean, it might appeal to the right buyer. You know what I mean? Like if somebody needs like a chef or they need a gourmet kitchen or whatever, because they're they went through, schooling for, they're a professional chef or something. Yeah, sure. They might value that a little bit, but the normal average buyer is not necessarily going to say like, oh my gosh, let's give this, seller $5,000 more because, the stove cost $8,000. I mean, it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree that there seems to be a big contradiction of like people thinking that putting all this money into their house before selling or whatever is really going to make a difference. Now, there are certain things that I'm sure you guys see all the time that do make a difference or whatever. I'm kind of like one of those guys that when I walk through a house or walking through with a seller, I'm looking at things that the other real estate agent that maybe is representing a buyer is going to create a conspiracy theory on. So they're going to see a spot on the ceiling and they're going to say, oh my gosh, the roof must be leaking. Well, no, it might be a very simple fix or something that was addressed, 10 years ago. But I guess, shifting gears a little bit into your guys' expertise, when you guys are going in and somebody's looking to renovate, and it feels like we're seeing that, I guess, a lot more often, where people are looking at maybe selling, maybe the house is a little bit too small, but then all of a sudden they're kind of shifting gears into doing a major renovation or an addition or, something like that or whatever. What are some things that people need to be, I guess, concerned about if they're really getting ready to get into like a large renovation or a large, addition project?
I think there's a couple things, right? One that comes to mind is like, let's just say an addition, for instance, is how long it actually takes to do something like that, how long it actually takes to get the permit done. Is it even possible on their piece of land?
Sure.
Right? And then who's going to be in charge of figuring that out, right?
Sure.
Because some people want to deal with that themselves. Some people don't know where to start, and that's why they call somebody like me. Because as far as like permitting and stuff, like I'm very well versed. I have good connections with the permit offices. Sure. I deal with them often, right? And so a lot of people just want to turn that over. They're like, hey, I'm paying you. You figure it out, right? And so there's that. And I think being realistic about, like I said, the permit, figuring that out, and then how long does it take to actually get that process completed?
Right.
And then when the work starts, how long does that take? And then I think the big thing is like, aside from how are you going to pay for this, right? That's a whole different conversation.
Sure, yeah.
But
probably the most important part.
For me, yeah. But for them, I think it's, well, where are you going to be living for the next 6 months?
Sure,
you know
exactly,
I mean?
yeah, for sure.
And so I've done it both ways. I've had people who move out completely. I've had other people who are like, yeah, I don't have that capability to do that.
Yeah.
But then it's like, can you be displaced for that long or inconvenienced for that long?
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Like I have one right now that it's a repeat customer. And we had that conversation, right? Because we're about to start this addition for them, or start the process. Really, we haven't even like designed, but gave them their budget numbers. They're like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we're good, right? So that's what I said. I was like, "Are y'all gonna be living here or not?" And so we had to figure that out logistically. Like, can I still access my kitchen? No. Are you good with using your grill for 6 months? You know what I mean? Like, and if you are, hey, more power to you.
Sure.
But I did warn you. I don't want to hear about it in month 3 that this has got to hurry up.
So you kind of prep them for the.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, you should. Here's
should.
what I should. Yes, I should. I'm not doing them a good service if I'm not.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not like, oh yeah, we'll be done in like a couple weeks. You know what I mean? Just to get them to move forward with it. That's not cool. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that happens though.
Tent in the
Unfortunately.
backyard.
Yeah.
It definitely happens.
Yeah. No, and that's the hardest part too, is that I think that a lot of contractors go in and they probably don't give room for error like they probably should. Because unfortunately, I mean, I don't care what type of project it is. We talk with this about with investors all the time, is that, you're remodeling this house or you're going to, get into this investment. Once you start tearing down walls, I don't care what you see from the outside, there's going to be something that's not going to go as planned. I mean, it's just, it's the electrician was lazy that day back 20 years ago, and instead of running the wires like he probably should have, he ran them right through where you thought you were going to put this or that or whatever. So, I guess, backing up a step. So, and this, we hear about this, we hear horror stories from some people, but like, what should somebody, if somebody's going to hire a contractor to do like a large renovation like this, like a, remodel or addition or something like that, what should some things that a homeowner should be aware of, or maybe some questions that they should be asking the contractors that they're interviewing or that they're about to hire?
So I think first and foremost, make sure they're licensed.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And, I would say make sure they're licensed and make sure that the scope they're getting into, they're experienced with. Right?
Okay.
Because as you know, and this is not a shot at anybody, I believe that there's space for everybody in this line of work.
Sure.
Right? You don't need to come to me to get a couple pieces of tile replaced.
Sure.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're coming to somebody and you want to do this, you have a load bearing wall between your living room and your kitchen, right?
Yep.
You want to do the open concept
Yep.
thing. You need to go to somebody who knows how to do that.
Sure.
Right? For a couple of different reasons. One, they can tell you how long it's really going to take, how much
Yep.
it's actually going to cost.
Sure.
Right? I can somewhat anticipate what's in the wall.
Yeah.
What type of beam I need to put in. What type of, all the things that are
Sure.
required. And what about the floor that's going to be split in half now? Now
Right.
you need to do all the floor. Oh,
Sure.
I didn't think about that. It's all these things.
Or that outlet, where are you going to put that outlet?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or like the light switches that control from this side to that side, and it's all in this wall, and it's all fed there. You know what I mean? Like it's all these things that add up, right? And my thing is this: I try to make people as aware as possible up front, like I stated earlier, because if I manage the expectation, then the stress and the headache that doesn't pop up throughout, you were already made aware of it.
Sure.
So it's like it's a little bit easier to digest throughout, right?
Yeah.
Because there's something to be said about you're displaced or inconvenienced somewhat through this entire process. You're
Sure.
washing dishes in the bathtub. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just
You're making it happen.
yeah, it's just and it's this small window of time, but it's still like that. I think that holds a lot of people back.
Sure.
Where they're just like, I can't really. But the questions they should be asking people is like, do you have experience with this? And really ask the questions of like, I don't know how to really phrase it, but make sure your comfort level is there with the person you're going to be dealing with, right? For instance, if somebody came to me and said, hey, I want to do this remodel, like I said earlier, like, well, how involved are you past when I sign this contract? Right?
Yeah.
Because there's some businesses that are like that, right?
Yeah.
Where, you have a salesperson and once the sale is made, you never see that person.
Sure,
again,
yeah.
Right? And then it falls apart because the communication's not there.
Right.
Do I do that? No. But as time has gone on, like we were talking about before we started taping this or whatever, the business grows. I can't be the salesperson, the project
Sure,
manager,
yeah.
the carpenter,
Yep.
this, that. So then as long as the business is making sure that those things are in proper place and I'm still somewhat involved and overseeing in some capacity, things have gone well.
Yeah.
But we had to, adjust and readjust as the business grew to incorporate those
Sure.
people, different positions, and make sure that everybody is getting along in those positions
Yeah.
to where it's like this full circle, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's something to be said is like, if you really are looking for things to go as smooth as possible during a renovation, you really need to trust the person that you're interacting with.
Sure.
And that is one of those things where it's tough, man, because you're dealing with salespeople, right? I'm not a salespeople by trade or by
Sure. By default.
profession. Yeah, I'm just not, right? But like I've stepped into that role. But some of these places, right? That's their job. They need to get you to sign.
Yep.
And you want to trust them, but you know how it is. People get beat all the time on this stuff.
Sure.
And it's just unfortunate. It's the way it goes. But like there are a few contractors out there that are really just like, genuine, transparent. Hey, look, this is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
This is what it's going to cost. We would love to work with you. If that's not possible, that's about it. You know what I mean? So I guess I don't know if that answers the question or not. But
Yeah, no, for sure. So I guess if I could add two things, I feel like, something that somebody should be really looking into is probably two things. Love to get your input on this, but one is, and I think you hit the nail on the head, is that, somebody that can actually kind of see a couple steps ahead. I feel like that's what makes a good contractor or a good renovation company a little bit better than some of the others, is that they're already foreseeing other problems or things. They're getting out ahead of it or whatever, because that seems like that holds up a lot of larger remodeling, is that when something that was unforeseen comes in, now they don't know what to do, or they're having to shift gears. They have to get another trade in there, all these different things, or that, God forbid, that something has to be ordered that they weren't prepared to order, and now that's going to delay everything. The other thing is communication. We hear it all the time from homeowners, or even like, we'll have like a small, item that, came up on a home inspection, and then it's just the lack of communication. Just communication, good or bad. Sometimes I know it sucks to have a conversation to tell a homeowner, hey, unfortunately, the job's going to be a little bit more expensive because this has to happen, or, hey, when we got your walls open, we didn't foresee this, whatever it may be. But just communicate that, and it just seems like nothing is worse, or even if, God forbid, you have to like shift your schedule around because all of a sudden there's a fire burning somewhere else, you got to take the guys off. Just seems like that little bit of communication goes such a long way with somebody, because they are being inconvenienced. I think you probably said it best.
I think that's true. Not to cut you off, but just while we're on the topic, that is something that we implemented some time ago. Was we have these project managers, obviously, and they're pretty much the point of communication throughout the project. And it got to a point where it's like somebody would be calling, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Because you learn through trial and error, obviously. And at that point, it's up to you to make the decision to do something about it or not, right? So it got to that point, and I was like, all right, well, we need to do something. Somebody came up with basically a weekly email, right, that involves whatever parties are involved, right, the business and then whoever the homeowners are, says, hey, this is the upcoming week for you.
Sure.
Bam, 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 bam.
Yep.
And then anything that would come up in between that, they'd send an email out, hey, it snowed 6 inches, nobody's going to be there today. Or Ryan's kid's sick, he's not going to be there today.
Yeah.
But if you set that tone from the beginning, those little things that do come up are not as hard for them to digest.
100%.
You're working with. So I thought that's been a tremendous thing. And you're absolutely right, the communication part. I mean, my thing is this, right, is like I'm not dealing with $700 transactions, right?
Right.
I'm dealing with these high value things.
Yeah.
I equate it to if I was to go buy a brand new car. That I've always wanted this brand new car. I expect a really good customer service.
Yeah.
I just expect it.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't, but I do. You know what I mean?
Right.
So then, in order for me to say, you're going to buy this very high dollar, thing that you've probably been dreaming about for years,
right?
Or whoever knows how long, and then like you sign this piece of paperwork with me, give me money, and you don't hear from me for X amount of time. That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy to me. So like I try to keep that in the forefront. Do I fall short? Absolutely. You know what I mean? But most of the time, we try to really, and I try to drive home with everybody. There's like, customer service is always your number one job. I don't care what your job title is. I really don't. Like, it doesn't matter. You could be, king of the hill here.
Sure.
At the end of the day, if you're not providing good customer service, you're not going to work.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, that's it.
Right, that's it.
No. I mean, that experience, especially for like for you guys are doing these huge projects. The experience of it from, you know what I mean? I mean, that's the difference. The experience is really the difference of whether or not those people are going to refer you to a family member or somebody else, or your name's never going to come back up. So I could see that really being important.
No, absolutely. So I wanted to bring it back around to, how the realtors also work with the construction company. And so a two-part question kind of for both of you. So the first one is, when does it make sense to build versus buy something? And then the second part, you might be more versed on this one, is like, what actually is going to move the needle on that resale price?
Yeah,
for the renovation
I'm
side.
let you answer that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Well, I mean, I think, and we were talking about this before we started filming, was it feels like we're going into this era of, or this kind of new wave of home ownership of, we have so many people that are, locked into these really low interest rates, right? And we've talked about it, about the golden handcuffs, right?
Right.
The famous analogy of real estate. But I think that there's a lot of people, and then you were saying that you guys are getting a lot more phone calls, over the last, year or two since interest rates have crept up, is that people are looking at really all their options, and it seems like there's, at least when I'm driving down, maybe it's just because I'm more like aware, but it definitely feels like I see way more larger scale projects going on, like people putting large additions on, or I can probably think on just my way to the office, at least 4 or 5 that I've been kind of tracking. You guys are doing one of them on Baptist Church Road. But, people are putting like a significant, because I know how much most of it costs, significant, improvements on these properties. So I think it's going to come down to really kind of like what you said. I mean, are you, is this where you want to call home for the next X amount of years? Can you validate or can you rationalize the expense that's going to go in there? Because, just because you put $200,000, $300,000 into an addition, if you go and try to sell that thing after a year or two, there's a good possibility you might not get all of it back. You know what I mean? So it's just, you got to be very aware of that. You know what I mean?
There's some point on there where the scale tips from, it's better to renovate than to buy.
Yeah.
Than to build something new.
Well, I mean, I think it just depends. I think it depends on the situation. You know what I mean? If you live right next to your mom's house, and that's the perfect ideal location, yeah, I mean, I think you should look at all the scenarios, but it might make a lot of sense because you're going to value living right next to a relative or right next to mom. You know what I mean? Of course, mom's probably going to make you
something with a non-monetary value.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I think it just really depends. I mean, there's so many different variables, but I think it's going to come down to the consumer or what the consumer makes the most sense for them.
Gotcha. So it varies from situation to situation. But the other one's more straightforward question. What types of renovations add the most for that resale value? Like, what is it worth doing versus, doesn't add value?
Me personally, and again, probably not. I wouldn't do any renovations like that if you're planning on selling. You know what I mean? But if you're planning to sell 10 years from now and you want to enjoy the nice updated kitchen, the nice bathrooms, the nice addition, whatever, you guys are busting out the seams because you had one kid when you moved in, and now you got 5. Yeah, okay, then, the cost of living. But, I mean, certainly don't gut the kitchen or whatever to put a brand new kitchen in there. I mean, that's probably the best way to get a divorce is to go and give your wife a brand new kitchen and then decide, hey, let's put a for sale sign out front. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I would say one that comes to mind in recent years, if we're talking about that, I guess post-COVID would be basement finishing.
Sure,
If you're trying to get value, because you have this increased living space.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's just say you have a 2,000 square foot Rambler with an unfinished basement. Like I'm building one right now, right?
Yep.
It's 4-bedroom upstairs. Well, if you were to add a bunch of living space downstairs, another bathroom and bedroom,
Sure.
it's a whole different house market. Right?
Sure.
Because how many 5 bedrooms are there out there?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Not a lot, right?
Absolutely.
And how many people want that 5th
Right.
bedroom, right? So, like, at that point, I think that as far as return on investment, that's up there.
Yeah.
Where before, I don't know, maybe it was and I just didn't pay attention to it. Something that you had kind of said earlier makes sense. Like, maybe but I think for return on your money, finishing a basement can be very good.
Yeah,
right?
no, that one makes a lot of sense. But I think that's where you have to go in. I mean, I guess it all just depends, like, if you're doing that just for the sole purpose of increasing your value, or like, hey, we're going to live in this and utilize this space for the next couple of years, you know what I mean? So I'm willing to do the investment, but certainly don't put, mahogany floors in the you know what I mean? Like, you got to be cognizant of, like, making a good investment when you do it, to be a little bit more effective with, and then get insight from somebody that, hey, does it make sense for me to finish it this way or that way? What's going to be the most cost effective? What's going to be the easiest for you guys to do? Because little things that to us, somebody that doesn't do this for a living every day, you know what I mean? Like, I might say, like, oh, yeah, it's easy, just do this. And, you're going to look at it and go, hold on a second. You're going to have to do this and that, and we're going to have to remove all this electric and then this. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, that easy, simple thing that we think is easy or, should be a quick, simple, cheap fix or whatever is really going to be a very expensive repair.
Or outdated in 3 months.
I'll tell you another, like, I guess this is maybe off topic, but I guess just the meshing of the two worlds, real estate agent and contractor. I would say it's at least maybe 10 times a year somebody will call and say, hey, can I get an estimate? I'm thinking about buying this house. Can you meet me there with my real estate agent? And tactfully, I have to tell them, hey, look, you don't own the house yet.
Yeah.
There's really not and so I started doing this thing where I'm like, look, I'll meet you and your real estate agent there. It's $300. I'll give you an estimate. Yeah. Right. And I'll tell you exactly what you need to fix to get this where you want it to be. Right. To me, if I'm thinking about making a $500,000 transaction, $300 is nothing, right?
Right.
But sometimes people don't feel that way. And
people don't get their septic inspected before they buy a house.
Yeah, they hang up on me, and I say, all right, it's all good. I don't hold it against them. But I don't think that the real estate agent usually appreciates it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think that,
but they agree to it, so I'm not like stepping on toes. But I don't know if it's kind of gets weird. You know what I mean? Where I show up and they're the real estate agent obviously wants the person to buy the house.
Oh sure, yeah. You just cost them. Now the kid's not going to be able to buy lunch tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Way to
I'm
go!
Like,
it's ruined their day.
Yeah, I'm like, this whole foundation's.
But I think
ruined.
look, I think you're touching on something that's probably another episode we can do. But really where. We see it all the time where people in this industry don't have a lot of experience on different things. Like, I can walk through a house and at least be dangerous on giving them the right guidance. There's certainly things that I'm going to say, hey, look, this is my opinion, but we certainly need a professional to give us that opinion. But I can walk through a house to say to somebody like, hey, it's as much as you think it's going to cost $20,000 to fix this thing, you're probably at like $80,000. You know what I mean? And I always tell like my sellers the same thing is like people always underestimate like how much flooring costs, how much paint costs. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always amazed when somebody walks through a house and goes, oh, for a couple $1,000 we can paint this house. I'm like, with what painter? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, no way. You're going to have a couple $1,000 in paint. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think you're doing the wrong thing by that, because I think at the point in time, if somebody's not willing to invest $300 to have a professional come and spend their time, and that's probably where you guys get hit all the time, is your time, like so much time, you know what I mean? Like just tracking down the right part or the right piece, making something work, you know what I mean? I mean, that's the hardest thing is everybody thinks that like, oh, a bathroom remodel should cost this amount. Well, no, like they don't realize how much time is really in it, in designing it and figuring it out, finding the best vendors, all that good stuff. But No, I mean, I think that's a big problem in the industry or whatever, is that so many people just think like it's just easy. Like, oh, I'll buy a fixer upper and put 30,000 into it, and
Make 100
yeah,
grand.
yeah. That's why so many flips go bad,
Oh man.
So, but no, yeah, I think you're doing the right thing, and if somebody's not willing to invest a couple $100s in having somebody come through, if that's really what they wanted to do, then shame on them.
Yeah, no, for sure. So if somebody does have the money, they're ready to move, like what's the first thing they should do? I'm guessing call for an estimate or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, call for an estimate. And I think that just be transparent about, not that's a bad word, just be like honest about like where they're at in the process, right? Because I'll move at whatever speed somebody wants, right? If somebody wants to figure it out in the next couple days and get under contract, I'm here for it.
Get a lot of bad information, people explaining the jobs, and it's way different than it really is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, or if somebody's like, hey, I'm just starting this process, tell me.
Yeah.
Right? Because then I'm going to act accordingly.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But if somebody's ready to really like move forward with it, I'd say the first thing to do is call, right? Because like I said, there's a bunch of services we offer, but there's a lot of things that we try to stick with what we're good at, right? If somebody calls me and says, hey, I really want this concrete patio done, I'm going to say, we're really not it, right?
Yeah.
If somebody calls me and says they want a deck built, all day, right?
Yeah.
So there's different things, or a kitchen cabinet repair, like we're not a woodworking shop,
Sure.
right? So off the bat, I will be fully transparent and be like, yeah, that's not a service we provide.
Yeah.
So get that part, like figure out who they want to work with, right? The consumer. And once they call, I mean, I always tell people when I go out, right? So here's kind of our processes. I'll go out, do measurements, do like a rough sketch on a piece of paper. I do all my designing on software, so that's all kind of comes later on. And I just ask people, I'm say, hey, have you gotten estimates? And a lot of times it'll be either, no, you're the first one, or this is the 10th one, right? And I'll say, okay, well, what would you like to do at this point? Because I say, hey, look, I've done 10 of these kitchens in the last year. Kitchens similar to this. This costs X, Y, Z. In my experience, give them a range. Usually, that's when they make their decision.
Sure.
Right? That's pretty much it, and that's fine. And so we either usually not end the conversation there, but the next question that I ask will usually give me a good indication. I say, would you like me to just email you an estimate, or would you like to come in, look at a design, pick out cabinets, countertops, the whole 9 yards? If they say just email me an estimate, a lot of times
That's a good move.
yeah, they're like, I'm good. You know what I mean? Or if they want to go through the design process, that's when usually a good indicator of they want to work with us.
Sure.
And I want to work with people who want to work with us, right? Not everybody needs to, but that's my preference. You know what I mean? Like,
No, and I think in any industry has kind of like that, right? So I mean, there's different levels of experience. We were talking about that earlier. There's different levels of experience, and how much do you want to take off my plate? You know what I mean? If you want somebody to come in and do a kitchen remodel or whatnot, and you want to go to Lowe's and pick out everything and pay for everything and bring anything, well, yeah, that might not be necessarily your guys' type of client or whatever. But if you want to come in, we're going to help you design. We're going to help you think about bumping into one another while, there's two people in the kitchen, and we're going to make sure everything's staggered correctly and got the right distances and that it's going to be a functional kitchen. And we're going to give you lots of different options or kind of help guide you through that. Okay, well, then we might be the right company for you. So I think that's with anything. I mean, I think with any service, any profession or whatever, I think, people have to be willing to decide what they're willing to pay for, what type of experience.
And I think that's, everything in our company is always evolving. We're changing, right? Yeah. As any company should. But that's kind of something that I developed as far as like, asking that set of questions, right? It's like, do you want me to just send you a price, right? Yeah. Because what that does is something that you said earlier is the time. It saves both parties time.
Oh, sure.
I don't want to drag somebody in on a Friday after they get off of work to meet with me for 3 hours.
Right.
To talk about something that we're not even going to do.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? No. I don't want to put somebody through that.
Right.
We're not the company that's like, get you all built up and then be like, oh, this is what it's going to cost you.
Right.
And then we both wasted our time.
Sure.
It doesn't make sense. Right.
Yeah.
So, but I think that that's a sales tactic in itself, right? I'm aware. I just choose not to do it.
Sure.
But I think the transparency part is really my preferred thing.
Yeah.
I'd rather give people the option of like, hey, this is what we have to offer. This is who we are. You can see online from our reviews. We have had a couple bad ones, but 95% of them are excellent.
Sure.
Right? People like working with us. We're local. This stuff's not like outsourced. It's all, people you see in the community that work here.
Right.
So I think we have a good product. I think we provide a good service. Customer service, like I said, has always been like at the forefront. And I don't know. I think a lot of people like working with us. So
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I mean, at the end of the day, too, I mean, I think, when you go and make that initial conversation or your guys' brand, the marketing, things that you guys do, at the end of the day, I mean, you really want to do business with people that want to do business with you,
Yes.
So, I mean, and I think if that relationship is mutual, you know what I mean, and the communication's there, the transparency's there, you guys are, fair price or whatever, reasonable for how much time and effort and your expertise, then, the consumer's ultimately going to pick and want to work with you, so.
Yep. Yeah. So, okay. So we've gone over today about your company, what you guys do, hiring the right contractor, what people can do to prepare for renovation, kind of the difference between renovating and buying. Is there any other things that are, important to the whole construction situation for people making their decision that you'd like to tell viewers?
I guess the big takeaway is, you can get all the information, right? But I think you really just need to trust the person you're working with, and want to be around them, right? Because you're going to be dealing with them. But I think that's a big thing, right? I think, and this is going to sound so cliche or whatever, but you kind of have to go with your gut, right? Who's giving off the right vibes? Because at the end of the day, all the reviews, all this stuff and that, everybody's experience or situation can be different.
Sure.
It just can be. It depends.
Yeah.
I could be having a bad day or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
But most of the time, I think it sounds like probably the worst advice, but to me, it sounds like the best. Is you got to just trust the person you're working with. As long as they check all the boxes that we talked about, right? They're licensed. Look at their reviews.
Sure.
Ask people who have had their kitchen, right? Or their whatever,
Sure.
their deck built. If you ask enough people, you'll probably hear a lot of the same names.
Yeah.
It might not be ours, but it'll be a lot of the same names. So
Sure.
I think there's a lot of quality people out here. I also think that there's an equal amount, if not more, bad apples, right?
Yeah.
Or not even bad apples, just inexperience, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean?
It's tough. You guys are in a tough industry. I mean,
It's
that's I would say way harder than our industry or whatnot. I'm sure some real estate agents would disagree, but that's tough. I mean, it's a very tough, and especially with you guys doing such larger scale projects for people, where it's not necessarily something cheap like you said, fixing a couple tiles, putting down some carpet, flooring. I mean, you guys are doing major renovations of where people are having to figure out how to pay for them. They're having to get a home equity line of credit. They're having to take out a credit card. I mean, there's a huge investment in there, and I think you said it well. Is just there's got to be some type of level of trust and comfort, being comfortable with moving forward with that company or whatever. And it's good. I mean, hopefully this episode will hopefully help people out, feel, make sure they're licensed, make sure you're asking the right questions, make sure you're comfortable, whatever, because I feel like that can eliminate so many problems, so many of those bad Google reviews or whatever. People just do their homework up front.
All right. We shared a lot of information. Is there anything else you guys want to put out there before we wrap it up?
Well, I guess most importantly, I mean, if somebody's interested in learning about a project or, learning about, different things about your guys' company, what's the best way to find you?
You can give us a call at 240-587-2207. You can visit us online at www.mdcustomconstruction.com. Our Facebook page is up. Like and follow. Our Instagram is building as well. That's what we're working on. I'm trying with the reels.
We'll get you on
stuff.
TikTok here soon.
Yeah, we're on TikTok.
TikTok dancing. I
You
can
have
see
a
it now.
YouTube page that has 2 followers, I think. But just give us a call. We have forums on our website. Even if you just have questions, just whatever it is, just give us a call. We can definitely help.
No, I think it's important, and just start the process early. I think that's the biggest thing. Ask some questions, at least kind of get down the right path. I think that's the most important part. Very good.
Awesome. Well, Stephen, thank you for joining us today, Maryland Custom Construction, and we'll see you next time on the Southside Blueprint.